Hey guys, Kirk from Desertsportsman here. Today we got a really special video for you. I'm gonna be tying what is probably my most efficient pattern for Arizona, Colorado, and Washington when I make the trips I do. I discovered this pattern last year while fishing in Colorado. A guide handed me one and I haven't looked back since. It's called a CDC pheasant tail. It's a little bit of a variation from your standard pheasant tail, and I'm very happy to show you guys that today. For the demonstration, I'm starting with a size 12, 2X long, 2X heavy. It's gonna be a TMC 5262 hook. It's a size 12, so you, the viewers, can get a better view of it. And then I already started by putting a bead right onto the fly for us. This is a small brass copper colored bead. And to start, like always with any fly, you're gonna start the base of your thread right at the head. And I like to get a nice thread base going. Cut the tag end. And then I take my copper wire that we use on almost all pheasant tails already, and I'd like to sneak this right up into the bead, tie it down with a couple thread wraps, and then start moving back with my thread wraps to secure the wire. I like to come back right to about where the barb of the hook is, and then move my wire out of the way so I can continue tying and adding more material. This is just your standard natural colored pheasant tail fibers. I like to take about a clump of 6 or 7 fibers. And then I'm a little bit different when I tie my flies. I like a little bit of a longer tail. A lot of guys will say about half the shank length for the tail. I'm gonna go about 3/4. And to measure that out, that's a full shank length. So we're gonna pinch it off and come back, and now we're gonna tie it in. And I like to do about 2 wraps. So now I have the tail of my pheasant tail. Now that's a lot longer than what a lot of people use. It's just my personal preference. Change it to however fits you better. Once the pheasant tail fibers are secure, I'm gonna lift up the pheasant tail fibers. I'm gonna move back to the thorax. Now holding the fibers, I'm gonna start palmering them up the shank of the hook to build a body. Now once again, I'm a little bit pickier about my pheasant tails, and I like a bit of a slimmer profile until I get to the thorax. So I'm gonna do, 3 to 4 wraps up to the thorax of the hook, or the thorax of the fly. And when I get there, I'm gonna tie it off. Give it a good couple turns back up to the head to make sure that that body is nice and secure. Now with most pheasant tails, at this point you usually keep the tag ends of the pheasant tail for the legs. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut them right at the base, give it a couple more wraps, make sure everything's nice and secure, come back to where I tied it off originally. I'm gonna take my tail fibers, bring the wire ribbing underneath it, and then I'm gonna start working my wire up the body, giving it a nice ribbing. And then tie it off. Break off the wire ribbing. Now's the fun part. Like I said, I like to keep the main body of my flies pretty slim, but I like to go way overboard on my thorax. So I cut the tag ends, make a nice even, make the tips even. And then I'm gonna tie that in right at the base of the thorax and wrap forward. Now I'm gonna bring my pheasant tail fibers down. I'm just gonna give them a couple turns around the thread to kind of make the peacock a little bit stronger, being that peacock is a very fragile material. Now holding both the thread and the peacock, I'm going to make a nice, big, heavy-duty thorax. tie it off. Once it's tied off, go ahead and cut the tag ends of the peacock. And now here's where the variation comes into play. I take some CDC dubbing, pick a color of your choice. I usually try and match like a brown or a gray to the color of the fly that I'm tying. This can be tied in black, it can be tied in red. Red's been a really effective pattern for me. Once I have a clump of CDC dubbing, I'm gonna dub it onto the thread. Don't be afraid to put too much on here because you can always take it off. Once it's dubbed on there, give it some nice solid wraps. That's about good for me. So I'm gonna pull that CDC dubbing back off, put it on my vise, and I'll use it on the next fly. Now you're gonna take your whip finisher tool. You're gonna give it a nice, good whip finish. I like to do 3. Pick back the material a little bit, and I'll do another 3. Make sure that's nice and tight, and then cut her off. Now, I usually take a wire dubbing brush, and I like to run through with the Velcro and just kind of bring the long, stringy fibers of the CDC out. Now, as it stands dry, it looks a little messy. That's okay, fish don't seem to care. Because once this gets wet, that CDC gets a ton of movement to it, and I like it a lot better than just having your standard pheasant tail fibers as legs. And there she is. This can be fished in sizes 16 to, this is a 12. I have fished them in 10s. It can, like I said earlier, be in black, red, natural. Some guys do them in green. It's a great pattern to use. It's my go-to pattern on the rim. If you're interested in learning more about this pattern, feel free to give us a call here at Desert Sportsman or check us out at www.desertsportsman.com. Thanks, guys.